Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Today we will deliver our presentation material about Principle of Language Assessment by Brown, and then Validity, Reliability, and Achieving Beneficial Backwash by Hughes. But before we begin, I want to introduce our group. First, I'm Robiela Dawiya as the first speaker, and Mam Desi Suryani as the second speaker. Without wasting this time, let's get started. First, Principle of Language Assessment by Brown. They are any practicality, reliability, validity, authenticity, and then was back. The first one is practicality. So, practicality, it refers to the practical aspect used in assessment, such as time, materials, effectiveness when used in a large groups, objectivity, and etc. So, according to Brown's, defines practically in terms of the first is cost, time, administration, scoring, and evaluation. For the cost the task shouldn't be too expensive to conduct. The cost for the task has to stay within the budget and avoid conducting a task that require excessive budgets. The next time, the task should stay within appropriate time constraints, and the task shouldn't be too long or too short. And then the next is administration. The task shouldn't be too complicated or complex to conduct, and the task should be quite simple to administer. For the last is scoring and evaluation. The scoring or evaluation process should fit into the time allocation, and the task should be accompanied with scoring rubrics, key answer, and so on to make it easy to score or evaluate. For the next is reliability. Reliability, it means the consistency and the dependable of an assessment. In other words, if it is able to evaluate in similar ways different group of students in different occasions. Reliability falls into four kinds. According to Brown, they are student-related reliability, reader reliability, test administration reliability, and the last is test reliability. First one is test student-related reliability. This kind of reliability refers to temporary illness, fatigue, a bad day, anxiety, and other physical or physiological factors of the student. Thus, the score obtained of the student may be not his or her actual scores. And the next is reader reliability. Reader reliability deals with the scoring process. Factors that can affect the reliability may be human error, subjectively, and bias in scoring process. So this kind of reliability fall into categories. They are inter-reader reliability. The second is intra-reader reliability. Inter-reader reliability, it occurs when two or more scorers yields inconsistent scores of the same task. So possibility for lack of attention to scoring criteria, inexperience, inattention, or even biases. And for intra-reader reliability, it is a common occurrence for classroom teachers because of unclear scoring criteria and bias toward particular good or bad student or simple carelessness. Okay, for the next is test administration reliability. Test administration reliability concerns with the condition and situations in which the test is administered. To increase the degree of this kind of reliability test, teacher as the administrator should consider all the things related to the task administration. And for instance, if we want to conduct a listening task, we should provide room which is very comfortable listening environment. So the noise from the outside the room cannot enter the room, and the audio system should clear to all students. Even we have to consider the lighting, the condition of the desk and chair as well. And then the next is task reliability. Task reliability refers to the task itself, whether the task fits into the time constraints. It means that the task shouldn't be too long or short, and then the item of the task should be crystal clear. That it will not end with ambiguity. Next, validity. Validity, the most complex and important principle that needs to be in, incorporated in assessment and task, refers to importance and meaning of the results. In other words, this principle aims in the task capability of evaluating in efficiency way with was teached. So Brown's proposed 5 ways to establish validity. They are content validity, criterion validity, construct validity, and then consequential validity. And then the last is phase validity. Next, content validity. Well, the correlation between the contents of the task and the language skill, structure, and etc., with which is meant to be measured has to be crystal clear, and the task item should really represent the course objective. And then the criterion related validity. This kind of validity emphasizes on the relationship between the task score and the outcome. So the task score should really represent the criterion that is intended to measure in the task, and then the criterion validity can be established through 2 ways. The first is concurrent validity, and then the second is predictive validity. Okay, next, construct validity. Construct validity refers to concepts or theories which are underlying the usage of certain ability, including language ability. Construct validity shows that the result of the task really represents the same construct with the ability of the student which is being measured, according to Jiwandono. And then the last is consequential validity. Consequential validity to reverse to the social consequences of using a particular task for a particular purpose. So the use of a task is said to have consequential validity to the extent that society benefits from the use of the task. Okay, next. Phase validity. Okay, a test is said to have phase validity if it looks to other testers, teachers, moderators, and students as if it measures what it's supposed to measure. It is according to Hatton. So in speaking tasks, for instance, phase validity can be shown by speaking activities as the main activities in the task. The task should focus on student activities in speaking, not anything else. And then the task can be judged to have phase validity by simply look at the items of the task. And a note to the phase validity can affect student in doing the task. And then the last is to overcome this task constructor has to consider that. Well, next, authenticity. It is a possibility of the representation of a linguistic situation. A test or an assessment is authentic when the first is a language use is as natural as possible. Items are contextualized and related to each other, and then topics are meaningful and relevant for the learner, and the task represent or approximates real world tasks. Authenticity deals with the real world. Authenticity is the degree of correspondence of the characteristic of a given language task to the features of the target language task Brown. And then the teacher should construct a task with the task item are likely to be used or applied in the Well, for the authenticity deals with the real world. Authenticity is the degree of correspondences of the characteristic of the given language task to the features of a target language task bound. Then the teacher should construct a task with the task item are likely to be used or applied in the real context of daily life. And then Brown also proposed consideration that may be helpful to present authenticity in the task. They are the language in the task natural as possible. The items are contextualized rather than isolated. And the third is topics are meaningful or relevant, interesting to the learners. The fourth is some thematic organization to items is provided such as through a story or episode. And last is task represent or closely approximate real world it does. Okay, for the next last chapter. No, I mean last chapter is was back. So was back is the usage of testing as an instrument of diagnosis of the strength and weakness of the task taker and also the effectiveness of teacher methodology. So a task or assessment that uses the Wozbeck principle is the first is provides interactive feedback, allows teacher insight and possible windows of further work. The third is possibilities the enhancing of basic principle of language acquisition as motivation, autonomy, self-confidence, language, ego, and then interlanguage, etc. It can be informative when it is was back. Effect is provided to the learners during his progress, or summative, which is was back allows the learners to focus on further goals or abilities. Nonetheless, it was given in the end of a course. So I think enough. Next chapter will be delivered by Ma'am Desi. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Ara. And all of my friends, I would like to share the information about testing for language teacher by Arthur Hughes, which is the materials about validity, reliability, achieving beneficial backwash. The first is validity. Validity is valid if it is measured accurately what it is intended to measure. This seems simply enough. When closely examined, however, the concept of validity reveals a number of aspects, each of which deserve our attention. And validity itself has several types as follow. The first one is content validity, criterion related validity, construct validity, and also phase validity. First one is content validity. Content validity, a test, is said to have content validity if its content constitutes as a representative sample of the language skills, structure, and etc., with which it is meant to be concerned. It is obvious that a grammar test, for instance, must be made up of item testing knowledge or control of grammar. So, what is the importance of content validity? The first one is the greater a test content validity, the more likely it is to be an accurate measure of what it is supposed to measure. A test in which major areas identified in the specification are underrepresented or non-represented at all is unlikely to be accurate. Secondly, such a test is likely to have a harmful backwards effect. Areas which is not tested are likely to become areas ignored in teaching and learning. Too often of the content of the test is determined by what is easy to test rather than what is important to test. We move to content validity. Second one is criteria related validity. Another approach to test validity is to see how far results on the test agree with those provided by some independent and highly dependable assessment of the candidate ability. There are essential two kinds of criterion related validity. The first one is concurrent validity, and the second one is predictive validity. Concurrent validity is established when the test and the criterion are administered at about the same time. To exemplify this kind of validation in achieving testing, let us consider a situation where course objective call for an oral component as part of the final achievement test. The second kind of criterion reliability, the second kind of criterion related validity is predictive validity. Okay, this concern the degree to test can predict candidates' future performance. An example would be how well a proficiency test could predict a student's ability to cope with a graduate course at British University. The criterion measure the criterion measure here might be an assessment of the student's English as perceived by her or by her supervisor at the university, or it could be the outcome of the course. Okay, the next one is construct validity. Construct validity, the degree to which a test measure what it claims or proposes to be measuring. A construct is an attribute, an ability or skill that happens in the human brain and is defined by established theories such as intelligence, motivation, anxiety, proficiency, and fear are all examples of construct. They exist in theory and has been observed to exist in practice. Construct exists in the human brain and are not directly observable. So there are two types of construct validity. First is convergent and discriminant validity. Construct validity itself is established by looking at numerous studies that use the test being evaluated. Okay, the next one is face validity. Visibility is a test is said to have visibility if it looks as if it's to measure what it is supposed to measure. For example, a test which pretend to measure pronunciation ability but which did not require the candidate to speak, and there have been some might be thought to lack face validity. Face validity is hardly a scientific concept, yet it is very important. A test which doesn't have face validity may not be accepted by candidates, teachers, education authorities, or employers. Well, it may simply not be used, and if it is used, the candidate reaction to it may mean that they do not perform on it in a way that truly reflect their ability. So, novel technique, particularly those which provide indirect measure, have to be introduced slowly, with care, and with confusing explanation. So, how to make tests more valid? The first step is write explicit specification for the test, which include all the construct to be measured. And then make sure that you include a representative sample of the content. Also use direct testing and make sure the scoring is valid. Also make the test reliable. Okay, the next one is reliability. Reliability. Reliability refers to the stability or consistency of scores. Nearly the same scores for the same individual in two sessions. Also, multiple choice tests have high coefficients of reliability. For more or further information, you can look at the books on pages 37. Reliability, the standard error, um, reliability, the standard error of measurement, and the true score. First is all test scores are estimated. The second highlight is all tests contain some degree of errors. And the third, you have to use a statistic known as the standard error of measurement. It is to estimate the limits within which an obtained score is likely to diverge from a true score. While the reliability coefficients allow us to compare the reliability of tests, it doesn't tell us directly how close an individual actual score is to what he or she might have scored on another occasion. With a little further calculation, however, it is possible to estimate how close a person actual score is to what is called their true score. Imagine that it were possible for someone to take the same language test over and over again an indefinitely large number of times without their performance being affected by having already taken the test and without their ability in the language changing. We are able to make statement about the probability that a candidate's true score, the one which best represent their ability on a test, is within a certain number of points of the score they actually obtain on the test. The next one is scorer reliability. In the first example given in this chapter, we spoke about scores on the multiple choice test. It was most unlikely we thought that every candidate will get precisely the same score on both or two possible administration of the test. We assume, however, that scoring of the test would be perfect. That is, if a particular candidate did perform in exactly the same way on the two occasions, they would be given the same score on both occasions. That is, anyone scores would give this. How to make tests more reliable. There is some points we are highlight about how to make the test more reliable. The first one is take enough sample of behavior. The more items you have on a test, the more reliable the test will be. Consideration to be taken when adding extra items. Additional items should be independent of each other and of existing items. Each additional item should represent a fresh start for the candidates. Also, tests should neither be too long nor too short. The second one is exclude items which do not discriminate well between weaker and stronger students. Items on which strong students and weak students perform with similar degree of success contribute little to the reliability of a test. And too easy item or too difficult items should be excluded. A small number of easy items may be kept at the beginning of a test to give candidates confidence and reduce the stress they feel. The third one is do not allow candidates too much freedom. The procedure of giving choice of questions to candidates has a negative effect on reliability. In general, candidates should not be given a choice. The next one is write unambiguous items. Provide clear and explicit instructions. Ensure that tests are well laid out and perfectly legible. Make candidates familiar with format and testing techniques. Provide uniform and non-distraction condition of administration. Use items that permit scoring, which is as objective, I mean. Next one is provide a detailed scoring key. Also train scorers. All scorers should follow the same criteria for scoring. Also identify candidates by numbers, not name, and also employ multiple independent scoring. Okay, reliability and validity. A valid test must be reliable. However, a reliable test may not be valid at all. Increasing the reliability of a test may be on the expense of validity. There will always be some tension between reliability and validity. The tester has to balance gains in one against losses in the others. Well, to be valid, a test must provide consistently accurate measurement. It must therefore be reliable. A reliable test, however, may not be valid at all. For example, as a writing test, we might require candidates to write down the translation equivalent of 500 words in their own language. They could be a reliable test, but it is unlikely to be a valid test of writing. Okay, the third point is achieving beneficial backwash. The first one is test the abilities whose development you want to encourage. Beware of reasons for not testing particular abilities. In case of MCQ and objectivity, subjective scoring in case of subjective tests, the expense involved in terms of time and money. Also determine the points that should be tested and give them sufficient weight in relation to the other's abilities. How to achieve beneficial backwash? There is several ways to achieve beneficial backwash. The first one is sample widely and unpredictably. Second one is use direct testing. Make testing criterion reference. Base achievement tests on objectives. Ensure the test is known and understood by students and teachers. Where necessary, provide assistance to teachers and also count the cost. Okay, I think that's all for our presentation today. Thank you for your attention.